I'd like to welcome everyone to this event, this startup and entrepreneurship focused event organized by Euromersive Turkey. Euromersive Turkey is the Turkish member organization of Euromersive, which is a European federation of XR professionals. And by professionals, we mean people working in the industry across various sectors and in various roles. In Turkey, our objective is to promote the Turkish XR scene, both companies and creatives and professionals, with among their peers in Europe. So we organize these events, we do them in English, and we share them with our network. And sometimes, depending on the context and the subject, we invite foreign participants to also join Turkish participants and peers for discussions, as we did with our medical XR startup and our State of XR event a couple months ago. As well, we also do research and academic-oriented events. We've done a research showcase in Altspace. So this is our fourth event, which is focusing again, as I mentioned, on startups and entrepreneurship. We're joined today by Güven Çelikkaya, Tuğra Şahiner, Emrah Uluçay, and Emre Çelik. And they're going to be talking about their respective initiatives, their startups, their journeys, and some of just some insights they've gained. They're going to share for those who are interested in following a path of startup and entrepreneurship in the XR space in Turkey. But I would also like to allude to a couple upcoming events that we have planned for next year. This is our end of year event. We're closing up this year because we were founded in the summer of this year. We have a second research showcase, which will be announced the details shortly. Lance is organizing that event. All of our events are kind of sponsored by different members. Membership with Euromersive Turkey is free. You simply have to introduce yourself and just tell us you want to join, and we post that we share that with our current members. And if there are no follow-up questions or concerns or objections, then membership is approved. So that's how we work. So I encourage any of you who are not yet members to consider joining. Members are attending our Euromersive Turkey events do not require membership. Anyone is free to join. But if you want to join the Euromersive events that we schedule with our partner and sister organizations in Europe, then you need to be a member for that. So how this session is going to go. Each speaker will have a few minutes to introduce themselves and introduce their startups. And after that, we're going to get into a series of scripted questions that I will lead. I'll be the moderator for this evening. I'm Michael Barngrover. I have my own little startup, but I won't be one of the ones speaking because I'm not a startup in the way that our speakers are. I don't have any funding, so I just do independent projects. But I'll be asking from that perspective. And after my questions, which will take about 30 minutes or so, maybe 30, 40 minutes, we'll be opening up Q&A to the audience. This event will be recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, then please, you can share your questions in the chat and just kind of indicate maybe that you don't want your name mentioned. But otherwise, this session will be recorded and will be shared on YouTube elsewhere. So you can share that with your colleagues as well. On that note, I'd like to thank specifically Ertan and Emrah for helping to organize and put this event together and inviting me to moderate. So starting with our first speaker, Güven, would you please tell us a little bit about your personal journey as an entrepreneur and what your current company is focused on?
Hi everyone, this is Güven from HoloNext. I'm founder of HoloNext company. We are a XR technology company, and right now we have a product. Simply, it's a tool, a web-based tool. We help companies to show their products in augmented reality AR mode from web browsers and also mobile devices very easily with zero coding. Very simply, it's a SaaS-based, cloud-based and SaaS product. So we design a 3D editor, which is running in the web browsers. You just easily upload your 3D content. We keep in the cloud. We convert AR-enabled 3D formats. And if you embedded this code to your website, your product will be started to be in seen 3D and augmented reality mode very easily. So we create a tool for companies which make them to reach and to get the AR experiences easily. And right now we are working with Arçelik Group and their brands, And at the same time, we have some global companies which we signed very currently, and because of NDAs, I cannot give the names, but they are global, some of them telecom operators. And yeah, it's very simply, we founded the company in 2018, at the end of the 2018. And right now we are 9 people and just focusing our own augmented reality based SaaS product. How we begin? It's something like my personal entrepreneurship. HoloNext is my first journey. I mean, my first company. And before that, I don't have any experience. Before that, I used to work in the gaming industry. I started to work in Netmarble in 2011. First of all, business analyst, then moved to the product side, and I manage both mobile PC and then mobile projects in Turkey and Middle East region. Some of them were very successful. And after the Netmarble journey, I started to work with Chinese companies. Like I continue to in the gaming industry, especially for game publishing and marketing. And then at the end of the 2018, I started to decided that I should have create my own company. But in the beginning, of course, I don't know what I'm going to do. So it how begins. It's very simply, I can explain like that.
All right, thank you. And we'll be following up with some questions about how, what kind of pivots, what kind of adaptations you had to make. Our next speaker is Tuğra. Would you mind please telling us about your journey?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Tuğra, founder of Rigel Technology. We are mostly known as WalkOVR, actually, since our beginning in 2017. And we are, focused on the intersection between the motion capture and the virtual reality. And we are mostly developing motion capture technologies. And WalkOVR is a wearable motion solution, specifically for premium headsets and premium virtual reality experience that enhances your motion in current application and simulation technologies, specifically working through SteamVR. So in a more simplified gaming language, that's instead of using your joysticks and the controllers in virtual reality, we let you use your own physical body to move inside the games and applications, like in the Ready Player One. Actually, we were developing a device similar to the one used in the Ready Player One first when we started. Then currently, it's a wearable locomotion device that lets you walk, run, crunch, jump, strafe in VR-based games and applications. Currently, with the COVID situation all around the world, we are also developing our second product and brand called Güven. Our WalkOVR and gaming solutions keep up, but with the Güven, we are also getting into the gym and fitness industry, again, by bundling mobile VR-based games and also wearable motion capture systems solutions. So I guess it would be enough for now. I will probably include more in the upcoming questions.
Okay, thank you, Tuğra. Next, our speaker is Emrah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emrah from Istanbul. I'm 30 years old. I'm an electronics engineer, and I have worked for several companies like Turkish Radio and Television, TRT, and for the last 4 years, I was working for Vestel, one of the electronics manufacturer, and I was a software developer there. And while I was working at Vestel, there was an event, and it was for the corporate startups. They were picking some startup ideas inside the company, and I had an idea which was gamifying the HR processes, and my entrepreneurship began like that. and we couldn't manage to make a product because we were eliminated in the process. But I had the idea that I would be happier if I was working in a startup environment. And after that, I wanted to apply for Turkish Airlines to be a pilot, and I became a student pilot. And then after the COVID, it is suspended. It was postponed for 3 years, and I had a 3 year ahead of myself. And I started thinking about, living my dreams, and I applied to Istanbul Technical University with a game idea, which was an augmented reality mobile game. In 2015, we had an idea to create a game like a scavenger hunt, which we thought it to be in Kadıköy. Players should go to Kadıköy and the positions are fixed, and there were going to be some quests in Kadıköy real streets. But then after I went to Izmir, we canceled that project, but the idea was still in my head. Then I applied with this idea to Istanbul Technical University, and we began in İTÜ Çekirdek. And we started to, develop the idea. Now it became something else, and it's like Pokemon Go, basically, but it has some differences. Not the same as the Pokemon Go. And now we have seen the finals at Big Bang event at Istanbul Technical University, but we couldn't manage to find any investors. So, and lastly, I have applied to Game Factory, and Game Factory and Google are, in a collaboration nowadays. They announced a program, Game Booster. It is a 6 months of program, and we applied there, and they accepted our game, and it will begin shortly. Yeah, we hope to find an investor and, create a demo. That's all for now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Emrah. And finally, Emre, would you please also tell us about your journey? We're noticing that we have speakers from a range of states, the seed stage, the more mature stage, but we're all, I guess, all still in the startup stage. So, Emre?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Emre from Nara Educational Technologies. I am working as project manager, maybe one of the, not CEO in here, that's me. I am working as project manager for 3 years in Nara, and we are mostly based in educational technologies, in XR technologies in VR. And mostly I want to say we are Nara founded in 2014, and then at home startup acceleration program, team type startup acceleration program, and Turkey pilot is Nara's acceleration and awards. And then now we are working mostly in industrial companies and telecommunication companies in Turkey with their XR solutions. And also we are still developing educational products. One of the products is tablet controlled virtual reality technology. And also we have a prototyping laboratory, which is called NLab. So mostly we are using virtual reality technology in our projects with different platforms, Steam VR or Oculus, and maybe that's all I can say for now. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Emre. And thank you all of our speakers for introducing briefly your journey. So let's start now asking a few questions, and these are questions that generally will be to all of you, but I may add a specific element if I feel like there's one of you that this question might elicit a different response. But first, for all of you, when did you think that either AR or VR was a commercially viable opportunity for you? When did that light go on that that's the area, the medium, or the technology I have an idea for? And maybe Güven, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Sure. So at the end of the 2018, when I decided to create start my own company, I start to examine the different sectors. What can I do in which fields and areas I can create a unique solution. And in that time, I try to examine myself, my skills, my desires, and the opportunities. My background was gaming, so I should do something like interactive things. So this is how I moved to AR and XR ecosystem. And when I check on those days, of course the Pokemon Go hype is still coming, still big, and it is still big. 2012, it's still big. It's nearly generated $1 billion until now, nearly until the September 2000. And in total, it's 4 billion, but just in this year, 1 billion. So, but at the same time, there are some solutions about AR, and so especially the web AR is coming up, and I examined that it's going to be something like the e-commerce will move this area. So not only e-commerce, but of course the gaming and so on. Actually, when we started the HoloNext, I don't know about mainly I don't know the technology behind it, but I just know it very, very briefly, but I have no idea about it. What is the technology behind the AR and VR? So after we start the company, we try to examine more about it, to check first of all, we decide the field, and we decide that we would like to work on AR, and we never want to be a company or an agency that AR VR agency or something like that. First of all, this is how it started when we start the company. So our field will be the AR, and after that we start to examine the opportunities in AR. So the product emerged like that. The product that right now is we are servicing to companies is emerged like that, and so it is how we begin.
Okay, Tuğra, what was the first time AR VR seemed like the right space for your idea?
Well, considering the VR as a commercially viable technology is something else for me. I mean, if you talk about the commercially viable, then I can say that it is when Oculus was acquired by Facebook in 2014, of course, because it's one of the largest brands in the world. If they get into an industry, then it will certainly create some hype in the upcoming years, and eventually we saw the hype in 2016. If we talk about when I started to believe in VR, or when I started to get into the VR sector, or some kind of this kind of immersive technologies, it's probably it was sometime in my college years in 2007 and 8, when we were more dug into the science fiction movies, etc. Avatar, Matrix, all those years were probably the first time that I started to consider VR or XR immersive technologies and how they will be really in the center of our life in the future. That future is actually almost today. That's how I started, in 2007. This is my generic WalkOVR, journey actually. Which I always explain. That's when I was in the college in 2007. We were, playing as many other university guys that we were playing some Counter-Strike, Call of Duty games on the two-dimensional screens on the PC. Then, in Istanbul, we just wanted to get into laser tag, paintball, group event all together. Then a question just popped up: why we're not still able to get into the games and play those games physically with our own body? Why we can not just shoot inside the games, etc. And then the idea was, of course, just stayed as an idea in 2007 because of the technology level. But after Oculus was acquired by the Facebook, everything just changed. And just probably it was March 2014, the announcement. And just after that, I brought one Oculus Rift DK2 with me from the United States in 2014. So it just took 2 years for me to start my own entrepreneurship journey by starting WalkOVR at that time, and then we are here. So briefly, the answer is probably 2014, if you consider the commercially viable technology as a VR.
Okay, thank you. Who's Emre? Your mic is open, so I think you're ready to answer that. What's that first time that that VR? I think in your case, right, VR seemed a really great idea, a great place for an idea.
We started as using technology in education, and then we worked with Pir Reis Museum in Çanakkale. They told us about the XR technologies using this museum's advertisement and some product in museum for visitors. And then we thought XR technologies can be useful for everyone to use many various industries like tourism, like industry, like healthcare or education, obviously. And we saw that this opportunity, and we worked with also Çanakkale Belediye with traffic education for pedestrians. And this will be my first experience in VR technology. It was 2016. I was in a summer camp in Kuşadası, and Nara was giving education about these technologies, and I saw this product. It was quite interesting for me, and then we just began our journey.
All right, and last but not least, Emrah, when did you think AR was the right place for you?
Well, when I was a kid, I have seen movies like Tuğra, Jumanji, Matrix, and then Inception. And in those movies, they were creating some virtual worlds where you can go escape from the reality and where physics rules doesn't apply. And it really fascinated me in those years. And afterwards, I was trying to find a good idea for a mobile application, not just AR or VR. And afterwards, I began developing games with Unity. And then I have seen technically I am capable of creating some AR applications. And at the beginning, I had the idea of developing some AR applications for architecture, or maybe some marketing advertisement applications. But afterwards, we came up with the game idea, which was a scavenger hunt in Kadıköy. And afterwards, Pokemon Go just pop up, and we have seen it could make some good revenues. And we said, so this is applicable. And headsets are not so, reachable. But everyone has mobile devices. So we thought if we make a game for mobile devices, everyone can be our customers, so we can make profit. So that was the time. Like in 2015, there was a library, Meta.io. Then Apple bought that company for their own augmented reality background. So it was the first time at 2015 that I believed that I could make some augmented reality applications and make some good profits.
All right. So now I'm going to ask all of you, what are some of the big challenges you guys have overcome? Or maybe not overcome, but you came to this challenge and you maybe had to pivot or adapt, because this notoriously XR is not always progressing the way it's predicted in terms of adoption from consumers, or just falling prices and these types of things, or technology's rate. So I just open it up. Whoever wants to share first a challenge that they either overcame or pivoted around and avoided.
Okay, let me start again then. So I think the most difficult challenge is to find out the field. First of all, are you going to work in the AR and VR is the first thing. Although they're all in XR, the experiences are different. The second thing, after you decide you decided your field, even your AR and VR, you have to find out a use case. I think the most challenging thing is finding out the use case and create a product for this use case. So let me explain my experience. First of all, as I said, that I have no experience about AR and VR, even in development, like most of you. So when we start in the end of the 2018, we only know that we found the company. We said that, okay, we're going to work in the XR environment. We are going to create technologies. We will work in mostly the AR. But we start to check the opportunities. The gaming area is big, okay, but the IP is also important to create an AR-based game. So we also, when we start, we tried a game, AR-based game is still in the market. And then after that, we try to look for if there are any opportunities for the enterprise market and for the e-commerce. But the challenge is, while you are looking for these opportunities, you have to find out how to build it. So you have two challenge. First of all, to understand the technology. Like let's talk about our case, to understand the usage of ARKit and AR Core. We are using Unity, okay, but you have to know it. You have to learn the SLAM algorithms, how it works. So this is one challenge. But at the same time, you have to find out the use case. The use case means the AR and VR technologies are so fancy things. When you look at it, it's magical. I mean, everyone likes it. You share the video, but the fancy is not the commercial answer of the commercial. So you have to find out a clear use case solution that is creates a value for a company. If you are working for, if you are not accept the gaming sites, you need to find out. So you need to solve a solution, solve a problem. So to understand the problem, you have to talk with the companies. But in Turkey, of course, AR and VR still in the early stage and adoption stage. It's not something like Europe and the United States. So not so many companies know it. So if they don't know this technology, you cannot find out a pain points to talk and understand if they need or something like that. VR has an experience, of course, some educational simulations. Some companies already know it, but in AR side, they don't. I mean, the only use case is when we look at the remote assistant things, but it's also so few companies know about it. So if I summarize it again, the most and biggest challenge is to find out a real use case, a use case that will lead you to create a product. I think this is the main issue that we challenge, first of all, and second, of course, to understand the technology behind it. For AR, the SLAM algorithms, computer vision side.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question for you, Güven? Was there a use case that you thought what a great use case, like such a clear value proposition, but you just didn't find people in the market who shared that.
Mm-hmm. The use case is the use case that we decide and find out, then it create the product that we designed it right now. But at that time, no one has understand or so few companies. No one is in Turkey can able to experience AR shopping in that time. So we there is no use case. I try to understand the use case by checking the global examples. So we look for the global examples, global companies, and then I explained and showed them to the other companies in Turkey, and I said that look, there is some global companies that have already adopted this technology, like IKEA, but right now you can be able to make it in the web-based browsers, so we can do like that, and this is how we started. But the second use case that I found is the remote assistance thing. When I go and talk with the companies, especially industrial companies, they need those kind of requests before the COVID. Right now, it's much more popular. This is the second use case. So, but at the same time, we understand that this remote assistance market is already been penetrated, and it's a red ocean for me still. And there are companies already been have some products and experiences, and the hardware is the important side, not the software for me. So we not decided to go in that area, not to go to create a new or another enterprise remote assistance software solution. So we moved to the web-based e-commerce AR product. This is how we go.
All right. Is there another speaker who?
I can continue.
Okay, go ahead.
I can continue if you wish. Well, it's first of all, we are basically how we started is the hardware, startup. So we are fundamentally developing something similar to the headsets, to the controllers, etc., by the electronic boards, PCBs, etc. So, however, from your question, I understand. I'm putting aside all the standard, issues with the entrepreneurship, like creating the company, accounting, finding the customer, funding, finding the correct talent, etc. I'm putting those all aside. Probably it is for the virtual reality, of course. It's probably the setting the correct experience level. Because basically for virtual reality, whoever use that headset, that application, whoever experience, it is somehow unique for that person. No matter how optimized that application, or no matter how much users focus group you use to develop that hardware or software, that's basically that experience is always unique for that user. So from that perspective, especially for the hardware, also for the software, you have to create some ways to for your user, create some ways to customize that experience for themselves. For example, for WalkOVR, if you talk about specifically for WalkOVR, we actually allow our users to use their physical body, physical being by putting their legs into the game, into the application. So they have different heights, they have different legs, they have different step frequencies, their weights are different. Everything is different from one person to another. So I can just say that the setting the correct experience level is one of the fundamental needs in a VR experience. So how we solve that, actually, we have some software also on the PC side, similar to Steam and SteamVR, that's talking with our hardware and with the SteamVRs itself. And we provide some a panel that people can modify their body parameters and also their step frequencies, step parameters, etc. So they actually determine after a few try and error they are able to set their own walking pattern and running pattern, etc. Then our motion capture algorithms are getting into the system and understands it and improves it better and better every moment. So after all, that's for the virtual reality. You need to provide a way for the person to customize that experience for them. And for hardware startup, it actually reflects to every point of your development cycle, to the firmware, to the hardware, to the software on the PC, for the Gmover, to the mobile application. So yeah, but of course, it is all, when we put aside all the fundamental normal entrepreneurships, difficulties like finding the customer, finding the funding, talent management, etc.
All right, and I'd like to take this moment before going to the next speakers. Our audience is welcome to write into the chat questions, and we will ask them at the latter part of this event. Emrah, what have there been any particular challenges you've had to overcome or just adapt to?
Yes, sure. As a game startup, the main problem is to find the ideal game design and user experience, because we always question the experience that we provide to our players. Like we always question that, is AR really necessary for this experience? Like what's the difference that distinguishes this experience from the normal regular PC game or mobile game? Like in our experience, the user holds their mobile phone, the handheld device, and they can walk around their rooms. In this pandemic, people are really fed up staying in the same room, looking and staring at the same walls, and they want to change their environment, but they cannot go outside freely as before. So we wanted to give them the opportunity with our portal mechanic. Like, you summon a portal and you go inside from that portal physically by walking with the device in your hand. And after you pass through that portal, inside the screen, you see a different environment with 3D space. So we thought we could give them some different experiences, and we can give them the feeling like they are changing their environment. But we questioned ourselves at that point, if the players want to experience a different environment, why should they use this and not, for example, play World of Warcraft? And there are thousands of different environments, and maybe it's more immersive than what we are creating. So game design and user experience, secondly. And augmented reality is hard to play with, because first you have to detect the ground plane, and the players should move their cell phones very slowly to find the points of interests smoothly. So we should direct them, guide them for moving their phones slowly, and people are not ready to use or our devices are not strong enough for this kind of calculations. It's pure geometry. And people are not very ready to use this kind of experience with their mobile phones, in my opinion. And as an entrepreneur point of view, it's hard to maintain a team's motivation through all the processes, because my partners are still working for another companies, so they didn't quit their jobs. So it's difficult for them to keep their motivations. So this is another challenge that we are facing. And to find an investor is another challenge, of course. That's all I can say about it for now.
All right. All right. Thanks. And Emre, again, I'll ask you too. The previous question, but I'll also throw the next question at you. The previous question again was, what type of challenges did you or your company have to overcome in developing its product or finding its place? But also, what maybe about Turkey or the markets that you've operate in, what might be unique challenges to that market? I'm assuming it's Turkey, but you might be working in other markets as well.
So I just want to thank you for this question, because I am talking about this, like Mr. Güven said, maybe the most difficult part is finding the right field for you. And in educational technology, it's difficult to implement these technologies in school or in consumer part. So we decided to pivoting our company for two different ways. One of them is open. We started a mirror company in New York. So we are going to expand our market to other countries, also in Europe. And then the other solution is we are going to expand our market in Turkey for various fields, not only in education. So the advertisement and industrial solutions for R&D departments, and also some healthcare solutions for universities, some medicine faculties. So we overcome this market problem for now like this. And our second unique difficult challenge is finding qualified employers. Because as I told before, we are based in Çanakkale. It's a small city. It's not like Istanbul or Ankara or Izmir. So it's not easy to find experienced developers or 3D designers for working in a small city. But we are overcome this with COVID-19 pandemic, because we all are ready to work remotely. So our company's experience in working remotely is growing. So this will help us to find this solution.
All right, thanks. You actually touched on the COVID impact, which I think I'd like to add to asking the other speakers about what are maybe some unique challenges you face operating in Turkey or founding in Turkey, operating here, but also what opportunities or impact has COVID had on your product design and offering? Whoever wants to take that one first.
Yeah, I can go first.
Okay.
Yeah, at first I thought people stayed at home for so long time and they may feel depressed. They may, became lazy, and I think they should go outside and walk around. So I thought I should design the game to lead them outside. But after that, I thought, deciding what is good or bad for the consumers is not a good idea. So because at the beginning, I thought there was a barrier in front of the people to go outside, because I was talking with my friend and I said, why you are not working out? Why you're not moving at all? And he said, because I'm not going outside as I was going before. So I thought he was waiting for an invitation from a friend, socially, I mean, to go outside. So if nobody invites him outside, he wasn't going outside. So I thought there was a barrier in front of people. And I thought if our game become an excuse for players to go outside, that would be a win. But afterwards, I thought this wasn't a really correct idea. So I thought it's okay for them to play this game indoors. And I changed the game design in this way. So we thought we can, create some immersive virtual worlds inside their homes and not forcing anyone to go outside to play this game because it may be frustrating. So COVID has affected our game design in these kind of ways. I can say this.
Yeah, hard to predict whether you should be designing for a COVID environment, which is either lockdown or not lockdown, and then after, I don't know, when might that would that game not age well? For example, in 1 year, would that game not have a lot of value? It's certainly a lot of questions from virtual events as well. I can say it's hard to know what you should be designing to. Tuğra, Güven, any particular things about the Turkish market that are, kind of unique features or challenges, and has COVID as well really changed? Tuğra, actually, if I can start with you, because your product WalkOVR before, and I guess GymOVR now as well, kind of assumes that people can go to these location-based experiences a bit, right? Is that right?
Yes, indeed. Definitely. Well, first, let me briefly answer the Turkey question. So since we are, since the beginning, 2016, we always focused on the global. So currently, we are somehow shipping our products to 40, 45 countries all around the world. And Turkey is approximately 2 or 3% in our, overall margin. So for the Turkey question, I don't have so much comment to include actually. For the second question, for the COVID and for the location-based experiences, etc. For the WalkOVR, when we did launch in 2019 on crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, we started shipping in the last quarter of 2019, or let's say January 2020. In January 2020 we have already concluded shipping all the backer products to our backers all around the world. And at that moment, we also started to, collecting anonymous statistics from our backers and the users as well. And, that's a bit so basic information like how they use and why they use, etc. And also we did some surveys directly getting from our backers or also our customers as well. And what we actually point out in January and February, with the start of the COVID, people started to, use virtual reality, not WalkOVR, but overall the headsets, the VR, not just because of gaming, but also because of some gym experiences as well. We did similar news, etc. on some platforms in 2019 as well. Some guy lost weight, lost 40 pounds, 50 pounds by playing Skyrim in virtual reality, etc. So due to these statistics, surveys, information we gathered from our customers, or some comments that they directly forwarded to us, we decided to quickly move into gym side through the WalkOVR application first. And we started to measuring how much calories or energies you burn basically in virtual reality, and also with WalkOVR. So we somehow converged WalkOVR with a kind of Fitbit-like calorie burning experience. And we started to reflect the measurements to our customers. So it was actually a great move for us. Then it was already in our roadmap, and we started to develop GymOVR just to position a VR experience for in-house gym fans or fitness fans. So COVID actually overall, we see from the numbers, overall impacted virtual reality in a very, very positive way. We see high spikes in February, March, and April in VR headset sales. And also we see high spikes in the comments regarding the VR applications, etc. And I believe it will keep, this trend up also in 2021. Because not because of only COVID, because people now actually found new ways for VR experiences overall. They just faced, it's not just for gaming, it's not just for killing your time. It can be used also for many other applications. I'm talking about the consumers, by the way, of course, in the B2B side and all other aspects there. So COVID has that impact overall, according to me, for the VR side, and this is how we actually moved on the walkover and gym-over side.
Okay, and one quick follow-up. Obviously, we all know that the currency movements have been, negative for a lot of people in lira. But if you're a producer, have you been able to benefit that? You source, some materials from abroad, so maybe you don't get to benefit very much. But has the currency change affected, your business in a positive or negative way?
It was actually in a positive way for us, to be honest, because we already did the manufacturing in 2019. So we somehow, depleted our inventory in 2020, which we already developed. I produced in 2019. So it was a kind of profit year, 2020 for us, not because of the currency parity, but also because we already spent some money and already filled out the inventory with the products, and we just depleted that inventory in this year.
Okay, well, that sounds like good timing, fortuitous timing.
Yeah.
Güven, could you share a little bit? Yeah, I mean, you kind of touched on a little bit about working with Turkish clients and the lack of understood use cases, but are there any other particular features from a startup side working with AR that are maybe uniquely challenging?
Yeah. So in the beginning of 2020, when the COVID crisis started, our MVP is just finished, and we started to talk with the Emre Çelik and nowadays, and we started to leave the office and work from the remotely. At the same time, they decided to apply it to their platform, but still we have an MVP. So in the beginning of crisis, we don't have any customer. But with this crisis, so many companies started to contact with us because they know that there is no physical store experience no one is know about it, and still we don't have any physical store experience. So they understand the importance of it, especially for the e-commerce side, and they start to contact with us. So in means of course the sales and the customers, it affects us positively, and we can able to, although in the beginning of the COVID crisis, MVP is the first product launch was in June this year, June, and so many companies after Emre Çelik, so many companies start to contact with us, and some of them are already been our customer right now, and so it's generally affected our business positively in means of AR and e-commerce technology, we can say about it. So they understand the importance of it, and the COVID crisis is really push them to make them to understand.
All right. Now, I'd like to ask now a few audience questions as we're nearing about the hour mark. We have a question from Fırat from MedX, which actually he's directing at Emre, which is about in-lab and whether or not there's been adoption in high schools, and if so, how high schools are able to implement this.
Thank you for this question, Fırat. We working with vocational education high schools in different cities, Çanakkale, Ankara, Nevşehir, and Balıkesir. They are not able to set up mostly to buy these devices, especially, but they are going to use some governmental fundings to buy these technologies. And also, as you mentioned, we are working with industrial companies and their R&D departments, their design departments, for using this prototyping laboratory. So they buy this product and then they upload their 3D designs and they see how this design looks almost real world, and then maybe they can print out, or maybe they can fix the problem if they see. So mostly it's expanding our market for NLab is industrial level, because they are able to set up these hardware, but governmental schools are not, because as all we know, virtual reality products are very high costs in Turkey because of the currency issue.
All right, thank you. And without any additional audience questions at the moment, but again, the audience is free to ask questions. You can either type them or just indicate with a raised hand that you have something to ask. But I'd like to ask the speakers, are you, at this point, as we end this year of 2020, are you more optimistic about not just your product maybe, but the next couple of years of your field, whether it be AR or VR, or again, B2B or B2C hardware sales, or B2B, B2C software products, gaming or otherwise? Are you more optimistic now at this year, or when you started? Where has your optimism gone, up or down, since you started this journey?
Can I start it?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So I think in general, XR ecosystem is growing, but it's as a trend. But right now with the COVID crisis, it's doubled and tripled. I am not sure about how it's going to be big, the market, but both the AR and VR market size will be bigger, and the experiences, the importance of these experiences, understand much more. Let's first talk about the VR. Right now, there are so many companies start to gather in VR meeting rooms. There are so many startups at the same time in the world right now, and people are starting to visit and gather in conferences in VR mode. So in enterprise side, the VR is getting bigger and bigger, and especially for the education side also, right now, these tools like Zoom or 2D platforms is not sufficient for education, not only for business, but also for entertainment, for education. So the importance of VR is becoming much more bigger, and at the same time, of course, the Facebook is making progress, and the decrease of the device prices, it will makes people also to buy new VR headsets, and also make the adoption of VR much more faster. So both the development is in the hardware side, and both in the, of course, services side, and VR, it's getting much more bigger, and the importance of it understanding both in the end user side and the enterprise side. In the AR ecosystem, it's also been like, let's talk about this remote AR system. Nowadays, no one can fly it around the globe. So in a factory, if you have any problem, no one can reach you as a technician from the foreign countries outside your country. So someone has to reach the situation area and help the technicians in the factory. So right now, someone is just dial up and helping these technicians in remote assistant mode by using augmented reality technology. It's a fact, and it's creating a huge opportunity and huge value. In gaming side, I gave the example of the Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go was started in 2016 June, and the 2020 is the best year of Pokemon Go. It's, as I said, that until between January and September, the game is generated something like $1 billion US, and the total revenues is $4 billion US. Nearly the quarter of this revenues come in this year. So at the same time, these web-based augmented reality technologies and browser-based AR solutions is much more adapted. Especially, there are something like, I think in the world, there are 2.5 billion smartphone can able to run AR applications. And the AR core right now, there was a news on yesterday, only the AR core was downloaded more than 1 billion, the application. So the AR markets, augmented reality market is growing up, both in the e-commerce. You can, of course, the Snapchat and the Facebook, Spark AR is one of the trend pusher of this getting bigger. But at the same time, these try-on things like in the fashion side, the cosmetics, or the things that we provide, like to see the objects in your place because you cannot go to the physical store. Those products are also being much more adapted. So in both, when we talk about the XR ecosystem, it will be, I mean, the future of everything. Every field of service will somehow benefit from XR technologies, even in industry or gaming. But I see that not in the next 2 years, but the future of the gaming will be VR. Not in the 2 years, maybe 2 or 3 years, but after 3 years, the future of gaming will be VR and AR. And when we talk about the spatial computing, so we know about, as I said, that these devices are, we cannot communicate with machines and the data sufficiently because of the physical barriers. So XR technologies are also both an AR and VR give us to interact with information much more freely. So the spatial computing will be coming up. So we don't need any physical devices like laptops or smartphones. So those all trends support XR ecosystem, and I'm sure and I believe that 2021 will be much more better, especially for the companies who are working in the XR ecosystem.
All right, thanks. That was a pretty comprehensive answer. So I think maybe for the other speakers, if you weren't optimistic, more optimistic now than before, you probably are after after that answer. So does anyone else have anything to add on that specific point? Just, otherwise, we do have another question here in the chat from one of our audience members, which is about, go ahead.
Michael, I just want to include some examples from virtual reality side, because, I will take your question and I will put it one step further. I am more optimistic with virtual reality, and I am, I even, tend to say that this in 3 to 10 years, everybody will have a VR device. It may not be just the goggle or the VR headset. It may be any accessories regarding that. It can be connected to a premium headset, or it can be connected to a mobile VR, etc., experience, etc. But in 3 to 10 years, every human being on the world will have at least one VR-related device in their home, and it will be the bare bone of the entertainment industry in 3 to 10 years all around the world. Why I'm saying this? People are not aware of it, but we started to live science fiction literally currently with many devices. I will just separate this, of course, from WalkOVR, but I will start giving examples with WalkOVR and our products. For example, with WalkOVR, you actually started to put your body in a digital environment, and you start to walk in a game or in a simulation. We are working with also with some government organizations for the military trainings, etc. I experienced Tesla Suit last year in E3 in Los Angeles, and maybe many of us are not aware of it, but there is a technology called climate control. And with the climate control, that's you actually feel how hot or how cold it is around inside your digital environment. There was a brief, simple application. There were two doors just in front of you in the VR, and one is getting into a hot room and the other is getting into ice room. And when you wore that suit, and when you get into the ice room, you were actually getting cold, literally on your physical body. There's a device called Feel Real, and you can actually smell digital smells, from games or applications, literally from digital world to your physical being. So we started to live in science fiction in countries like Turkey, in countries like currently at its economic stage, where you cannot actually find tools to experience these kind of technologies. We may not aware of it, or the people in those countries, on the third level countries, are not aware of it. But the humanity started to live in science fiction, literally. So I just want to emphasize it one more. In 3 to 10 years, the bare bone of entertainment industry will be virtual reality, not just gaming, but every kind of entertainment will be related to virtual reality. And actually, I am quite positive with virtual reality in the next couple of years.
Well, if Güven wasn't optimistic enough, Tuğra, you definitely you up the ante. That's one of the more robust and ambitious predictions. But that's why we come together, is to share challenging and unique observations. So may I ask a quick follow-up about the Tesla suit? So for those of you who don't know, the Tesla suit has no connection whatsoever with Tesla Motors or Elon Musk.
No, of course not.
It's just a very, very smart use of somebody else's name, a Croatian guy's name.
Yes.
But when you put it on, what are you wearing under it?
I mean,
is it skin-to-skin contact?
No, it's not necessary. No, it's not necessary. Okay. You can just put it on your t-shirt. Doesn't matter.
Okay. I'd asked that because I've seen the videos, and some of us may have seen videos, if you have heard of this before, of people getting shot in the Tesla suit and actually getting hurt. And
exactly.
That brings up ethical questions, of course, about gaming.
Definitely.
To what extent can pain be an acceptable consumer experience? But you bring up a fascinating observation about how cold it gets. Could it kill you? Could you experience hypothermia? And that's just something that is I'm sure a bridge that the industry will cross, regulations will cross when it gets to that point. But that raises strong questions about what type of experiences we want to promote when we have wider access to these technologies.
Exactly. Just to include a little bit info regarding that, the example application that I just provided with the 2 rooms were not actually the Tesla suit application, but the sensor production, sensor manufacturer of that specific, climate change control sensors, let's say.
I see.
And it was actually not only that application, but also, there was a fire, inside the application, and there was a sensor. When you put your hand over the sensor, not touching it, you were feeling the hotness of that fire just in your palm, in that application. Mm-hmm. So, and ethical questions for the Tesla suite, that when you shut, you feel it. That's right as well. And also, if somebody in another continent wants to, tickle you, they may actually tickle you with the help of Tesla Suite. So, by the way, Tesla Suite is, in our competitors' margin. Even they are. I still wanted to give an example and a name regarding our competitor. So, I just want to, people know how can it may be limitless, with that sense. And for the ethical questions, we shouldn't forget the power of Facebook on this. Facebook is working on some face mimics, etc. and we know that they're trying to mimic your avatar's face exactly the same through your physical face. So we may see our close, friends promoting some, brands or products just inside the VR in the next couple of years without, without their, awareness, just because we sign a privacy policy that we didn't read. So ethical questions are many, of course, in any other, like in any other emerging technologies, but that's where we are going to.
Yeah, was what happens with emerging technologies. Yeah, the law comes after it. I'll share a couple of things before I ask the next question. So about the idea of smelling and feeling heat, if no one has ever heard of Sensorama, I encourage you to go back and look at Sensorama from the 1950s. One of the first immersive devices built that could have been consumer. I don't think it ever reached the point of consumer, but it's a good proof of concept that, sometimes these things seem so close, and then it's not really about the experience that's not ready. It's just other factors come in that maybe upset certain predictions. Those of us who are aware that VR, consumer VR, had its first peak in the early 90s, late 80s and early 90s, and probably would have been very successful if gaming consoles hadn't killed the arcade business for such a long time and took away the location that was needed. But yeah, so Sensorama, something worth checking out. And I don't know the other thing I wanted to share, Tuğra. You touched on so many. Yes, I'm sorry. Facebook. You mentioned Facebook. For those of us in the community who and in the audience who are not aware, perhaps yet, Facebook has come out with Quest 2, a new, really powerful standalone VR device that's probably selling very well right now. And they instituted a new policy where you must have a Facebook, an active and kind of confirmed Facebook account to use any Oculus device now. And there was a recent report, academic study that was presented out of Stanford. They have a few XR labs, but one of their XR labs showed that within 30 seconds or more of just tracking the head and the two controller positions, they can more or less guess who you are. So that when it comes to privacy data, normally privacy data is your name and your email and other types of things. But when it gets into a VR or a tracked experience, it really expands this to all the data is very likely to be identifying data. And this is just something that, as an industry, we're going to have to address, because probably Facebook isn't the one that we want addressing that. But that definitely will likely impact all of us. So there was a question that Ertan had shared, which is a good question I want to put to all the panelists about your experience, which is, how do you think Turkish investors approach XR startups? And I might throw in my own observations from my years, because I've had a few conversations, but what do you guys think? Turkish investors, what do they think about XR before, and what do they think about it now, maybe? And anyone who wants to jump in first is free to do so.
Let me start again. So, in general, the investors, investments for XR startup is a new thing. So there are a couple of VCs around the world, especially in United States, just focusing on XR startups. But in Turkey, of course, there is not a specialized VC in Turkey or specialized angel investor in Turkey. The problem is in means of funding. Turkey is not a very rich country. Both the angel investors and the VCs doesn't have so much money, so they try to make their best investments. So they don't have so much money to spend, as I said that. But still, most of them are, I can say that, the skeptic. But with the COVID, of course, they try to understand the importance of VR and AR, and so they are learning. But I cannot say that the angel investment or the VC startup ecosystem is very, very positive or very unskeptic to XR startups. We heard about some startups like I heard some couple of investments in Turkey for the VR, some kind of meeting or educational platform, online platform in the last 1 or 2 months. But I think that the budget size are relatively small. So for ourselves, how we solve this problem, we created our own funding. So we know that from the beginning, we know that there is we understand the reality, so we behave like that. So we are started the augmented reality solution. We don't have any company, we don't have any background about it, we don't have any experience, or we don't have like a real solution. So you need the money for this. So how we solve it? We develop augmented reality based applications for private companies. So we work like agencies until we develop and we start to sell our own SaaS product. So it means of, as I said, that investments, it's not until now, it's very positive. Most of the investors are skeptic, but I think that it will be change. It will be change, but I don't know how the time limit of change. Is it soon or it will be get longer? So I advise for the startups who are willing to look for the investments, Turkey might be option, but there are so many options in overseas. There are so many VCs and so on. So it will be a good option to look around except Turkey, the other countries.
Yeah. Anyone else have some insight or experience with investors? Again, it could be institutional, could be things like Subitalk. What do you think of their opinions?
I can include a few points. Well, the brief and one sentence answer is kind of, it can be investors don't approach at all for Turkey. For the question directly, I can answer like that in one sentence. But if we somehow enhance that answer this we need to understand as the entrepreneur, we need to understand the perspective of the investor here. Investor is a business person, and that business person is generally looking if that startup is profitable for me. I mean, in 1 year, 3 year, or 5 year range. And the secondly is it something that I can track, I can understand, I can guide, I can help, or I can motivate at least. If none of these, none of these, covers the topic of that startup from the perspective of an investor, then they do not approach at all, which is totally understandable because they are, as a business person, they want to business person. I mean, I'm talking about VCs as well. It's similar, and either it is an angel investor or the VC, doesn't matter. I mean, as a business person, if they don't understand that an industry, if they don't see any profit in that industry or in that startup, if they don't see any particular way to help that startup, to motivate that startup, to guide that startup in that industry, then they do not invest. So in this question, we either need to modify ourselves as the startups to describe ourselves easier and better to them, or we should not consider the investors in the countries like Turkey, not just Turkey, but many countries similar to Turkey. However, for the global perspective, it's different. When we compare the money, investment fund money and the funding with Turkey and the global, there's a massive gap in between. So in such situations, startup ecosystems or the investments ecosystems focus 1 or 2 industries, maybe 3 industries, and you all see all the fundings when the investments are, turning around those specific industries, like the marketplaces, like the e-commerce, like everything else, that's most of the time that we see in the news regarding the investment in the startup. However, for the global perspective, specifically for United States and China, there are massive amounts of money. that almost uncontrollable, which we know from the Magic Leap in 2016 and 2007. It sucked actually all the money in the investment for the virtual reality industry. In this kind of markets or ecosystems, let's say, there are niches, niche industries that VCs or the angel investors focused on. So there are specifically VR designed investors such as Boost VC or other investors who invested their money in virtual reality. So therefore, I also suggest, if anyone wants to get some investment, I also suggest going either to United States or to China for that particular reason. They know how to motivate, they know how to guide, they know how to help. If you are a VR startup, if you are a VR application developer, even if you are a VR hardware developer, there are ways to find people, to find money in the United States and China. You never simply, you can never meet or you can never drink a coffee with Oculus founder or HTC Vive founder or Facebook in a Starbucks in Istanbul. But you have a way, you have a possibility to have a coffee with Mark Zuckerberg in San Francisco. It's simply put like this. Therefore, US or China, which I also suggest.
Okay, that's good advice, though. The question always is who's in a position to act on that advice and gain access to these foreign sources. I guess that's part of the role of the accelerators. And exactly. So on that point, Emre, you have some experience of the accelerators, at least one or two, and Emre, I think you as well. How do you guys think of your experience, with investors, either accelerator program, the juries that you have to pitch for, and what do you think of their opinions of XR?
As I see, most of the investors are easy to give money for seeding or the first investment for these XR companies. But when the startup is getting growth and needs more money, as Güven said, investors are getting skeptical about it because mostly in Turkey, XR companies are not able to work on one or two products and then sell it because if you don't have money, you need to sell or you need to make a partnership with a B2B partner, and then you are going to work like an agency, and then when you maybe 4 or 5 years in your company, you can't show a product to investors because you didn't improve your product easily because you don't have money to spend on it. But I see, especially after COVID-19, most investors are interested with XR companies, XR technologies, because they see these technologies can be useful for many various fields, like education and the biggest gap in education. We all know that because in the pandemic, education quality is very low, and maybe XR technologies can be better for it, and they see that, and their interests are getting better. I saw that maybe, and also some B2B companies are interested with XR technologies maybe for 4 or 5 years, but their interest getting growth because the pandemic affects their businesses, their onboarding process, their operations, and we all know that the XR technologies can be useful in different places, different environments. So it could be better years in next 5 years, in my opinion.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I think you said a lot of things that I've heard people that I've spoken to are themselves not directly investors. They're kind of advisors for investors and for startups. And education does seem to be an area that it's a much easier value proposition to convince them of. That's very true. Often because they have children, and so they're looking at it from that perspective. Emrah, I'd like to ask the same thing. You know, what do you think from your experience? And this probably will be. We'll have one more just quick wrap up after that. But this will be the last question.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I'm not the one to talk about virtual reality with investors, but I have an opinion about it. By nature, a startup has to grow up exponentially, and the return of investment must be short. So in Turkey, the investors don't like to take some risks, and so they want to, they want to see some exponential growth. But if you're a virtual reality company, there's no such audience or the market, the consumers ready to use that technology. So it's not possible to sell those products to huge amounts of people. So in Turkey, it's not possible to find an investor right now. But as we have mentioned before, by years and years, the technology will improve itself by electronics, and it will be easier to reach out for the technology. So if the audience will become ready to use this technology, I think investors' opinion will also change, because they will see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they will smell the money.
And what about augmented reality? Because that's specifically your area. So do you see investors more open in Turkish investors not having that same concern, seeing the potential for exponential growth?
Well, I would like to give them the example of Pokemon Go by giving them the $4 billion of revenue, but it's not the augmented reality experience that made that revenue. It was the Pokemon interest of people what made those revenue. And so it's better for people to have some experience in mobile phones, because everyone has mobile phones, everyone has mobile devices. So you can reach more people. And by AR Core and AR Kit, most of the devices are in the coverage right now, and it's getting better and better. And iPhone 12 has some major leaps in technology, like some depth sensor, and soon I think most of the Android devices may have such technology, and it will, some more immersive experiences will be much more possible for us developers to make. So consumers can be dragged into the gaming environment easier. So I think it can affect investors' opinion by that meaning. But because it's not a headset and it's more reachable for us to find those consumers, of course, actually, it must be easier to, impress the investors. And if we succeed to show the investors that we can make money off our game, I think there will be no boundaries, or there will be no skeptical thinking to invest on us.
Okay.
Michael, can I add something about these investment issues? Because I think that it's important when we are talking about this startup. If Emrah is already finished. Emrah, did you finish? Okay. So all startups, as Tuğra mentioned about it. There has a mission. The main mission, of course, to create a value, and the second, of course, with this value, you need to create a cash flow, and the investors are looking for the cash flow. But the XR ecosystem and these technologies are so emerging technologies, so they are so new. When we started, I mean, the 2016, the VR is so popular, and then it stopped a little bit, and then with the COVID, it rise again. The AR is when the HoloLens, Microsoft HoloLens Magic Leap just first released. We saw the videos of the Magic Leap. We believe that everyone will have augmented reality glasses, and we will see the dragons and everything around us. But the reality is not like that. And we know the situation of the company right now, how the Magic Leap conditions, and then to try to go to the enterprise market. So these technologies are new technologies. It's not something like a SaaS business, software as a service solution, an application for websites which track the sales, or another chatbot, something like that. Quite new technologies. It's new for the San Francisco Bay Area even. So the investors are also skeptic in that countries. The Boost startup, the Boost VC, another one, are also skeptic. But the first question, and the reason why they are invested, they have so much money. Okay, we have to accept this reality. Turkey ecosystem doesn't reach like United States or Germany or something like that. Even Germany, there are so many AR and VR startups for enterprise markets. I mean, there are some companies just developing for mixed reality applications, for Microsoft HoloLens applications, which are used in the factories, because the factories can able to afford these mixed reality glasses, and they can able to use it in their factories. So they have money. The first issue. So the second issue is, for a startup, you have to prove something. You can prove two things. First of all, the market will be so big. The idea that you are creating might not be a use case for now, for current time, but it might be a quite understandable use case for next year. So if you can explain this, you will find the investor. I mean, it might be, you can still find it in Turkish ecosystem, but it's much more easier to find it than look for it. And the second thing is if you can not, persuade people, investors, with the idea, you have to find that money from your friends, families, tree fools, whatever, or you create an application for a customer anyway, like work like an agency, and then you have to build your product and then show the investors the revenue flow and said that we create an MVP. So this is our revenue. If you invest some money, we can grow up and so on. So there are two options. The first options, I believe it's not acceptable for Turkey. So trying to persuade investors in Turkey with a dream, but you can do it in San Francisco Bay Area because people do it. Secondly, for my advice and my perspective also, we haven't still have an investor, but we will, because of a new thing that we are working on right now. But our business is going well, and our product has created a sustainable solution. I think we are lucky we can make it, but we will do better things. So we need some development. So we are going to look for the investor, but I'm going to, and my company should look to the foreign investors, San Francisco, Europe, anywhere, because the reality is if you are going to work with an investor, the thing that you are going to take from them is not only the money, the connections, the possibilities, the ideas that they can bring with their portfolio. So for the startups, my advice to work and look, if they are looking for the global perspective, which all startups should look, all Turkish startups should look for the foreign markets, they have to work with or they have to start to work with the, let's say, the foreign investor, big group VCs, because they have the connections. they don't only invest money into your startup, but they will also take and bring some connections, like they can connect with you with the hardware companies like HTC or other Facebook Oculus Quest. So when they if they make a connection with you, when they publish the first product, you will be the company that will first experience their product before it will go to the market. So because of these reasons, I think that's in the Turkish ecosystem who are creating XR technologies and working for the XR technologies should always look for the outside of the Turkey for investments. This is my idea and perspective for now. But it doesn't mean that the investor doesn't have a vision in Turkey. It's not. I'm not saying like that. If someone is watching us,
hopefully, it's good to add that. Yeah, add that.
But we have to see the reality. The money in the Turkey is not so big. So people are more skeptic. It's normal. We cannot accuse because of this reason the people.
Yeah. But it's good advice, and I think most of you kind of mirrored that same thing. Definitely Tuğra and you, Güven, that you have to expand yourself. And Güven, I think you said something very true, which is what I tell people when I meet them at EdTech as a mentor for AR and VR is the Turkish market just cannot be your market. It's got to be outside, and that's not always what they hear from. Certain accelerators, certain types of traditional thinking is you must be sustainable and you must have exponential growth in your backyard. And for AR, the jury may be out whether that's plausible, but for VR especially, it's just definitely not.
Definitely not, because the taxation, $300 becomes 5,000 Turkish lira in Turkey.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of infrastructural reasons why this technology, even on the smartphone side, it's just, all these phones can do some type of AR, but it's not all equivalent functionality. I mean, I think, for example, plane detection, that's pretty widespread, but some more advanced AR or kit or core features, they're not in a lot of phones that are in a lot of different markets, and so you can say that to an investor, but you have to know in the back of your mind, you've got to go find those devices. At the end of the day, if you're doing AR or VR and you're doing something maybe technologically challenging, you have to go where the devices are and find them. So I think we run a little over time, but I don't think that's a problem. I think we had some really good insights shared. And I think I hope anyone who's considering startups took some very valuable advice and insights from this, and certainly anyone who's looking maybe to invest or learn more about some investment opportunities in the companies who presented today, learn something worth following up on. So we'll share your contact information when we post your company information as well. But I'd like to thank you all personally, Güven, Tuğra, Emrah, and Emre, for joining us today, and Ertan and Emre for helping to put all this together. Thank you very much from all of us at Euromersive Turkey and in Turkish XR in general.
Thank you very much for the organization and this event. Thank you.
Exactly. Exactly. It was great.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for coming again, all of you and our audience. Thanks for your attendance.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.